Welcome everybody to the B podcast, the Barcelona International Dance Exchange podcast. Today in our episode number 48, we'll be talking with our friend Dana Ruttenberg. Hello Dana, welcome to
Hey,
the podcast.
thank you for having me.
We are super happy to have you. So we want to start with the first question. Usually we used to change our style this year. So by asking you who is Dana instead of what Dana is doing. So
Mm,
can share with our audience how you define yourself nowadays.
mm. Nowadays, I think my new word is inventor or player because I really dislike the word choreographer. I feel like it's limiting, and then if I try to extend and say, a interdisciplinary artist who is also interested in, then it becomes really long and it becomes kind of academic and not playful. And I want to keep it in the playful arena. So I think inventor, but in a very childlike sense, like what a child would imagine a life of inventing would be.
Great. And the second question to fool a bit more is where are you right now?
Right now, I'm at my home. I actually closed myself in my partner's very cluttered room. So I'm on his desk. I'm not on my desk. My desk is open because I'm a mother. I have two children. My desk
Mhm.
has an open door for people to come in, and he's a director, a TV director, so he needs a closed space. So now I am taking over the closed space, and I'm in my home.
Super. And where is your home? In what city? What part of the planet? Because I know, but they don't know.
I live in Ramat Sharon. It's in Israel. It's about 20 minutes from Tel Aviv. Yeah.
Great. And what do you think, Dana? Because we met in December during the Jerusalem International Dance Week. What do you feel that you bring to the table? I mean, you said I don't like the term choreographer, but what do you think that you bring to the table of the, let's say, performing arts planet or
Mm.
country or land?
I think, yeah, I can see. I can say maybe about nowadays because someone said a very nice thing. They said not that they are a work in progress, but that they're a work in prog mess, like as in messy. So
I like it.
because it's yeah, so because it's evolving, I can only say about now. I think creativity. The thing that I like most about being in the art world is the creativity part of it. Whatever tools I end up using in order to be creative around a certain subject, I'm open to all tools. That's what makes the word choreographer a little bit narrow for me. Um, but I think so. Creativity, above all, I think is one of the things I'm really interested in. The second is thinking about dance or about performance as a dialogue. So I know that dance has the power to be, for instance, an outpour of my own psyche and kind of a therapeutic process for the performer or for the artist. But I actually think it's only part of the picture.
Okay.
I'm looking at the audience and the people that come to attend the shows not only as witnesses. I'm looking at them as partners. I'm looking to hold their hands, so like if you could say that, and for us to have some kind of shared meaningful experience together. So that's the second thing. And the third thing that I've been researching more and more in the past, I think, 8 years, is how I can deal with the matter that makes life inside my work. So if before I would let, or earlier in my career, my mind would take over and I would think about philosophical and academic ideas that I wanted to explore, and I almost like commissioned myself to do these researches, and they were a little bit disconnected from life. And then I realized through one of the works that I did that was autobiographical, I said, I can actually not separate these two, and while I work and while I create, actually change something or evolve as a person or think about myself. And then I'm anyway, like during your life, and I know you feel that too, you are separated or shattered into so many little particles. There's you with your family, and you with your friends, and you with your work, and you with your colleagues, and you with the people that surround you. And so if there's any kind of integration that is possible through this, I take it with two hands. So I've started really reworking things that are important to me at a certain time, finding partners, performers, and collaborators, that something that is also like in dire need at that time. And together we do this voodoo kind of thing where we, the creation becomes part of life, and life pours itself into the creation. So that's what we do now.
Great. And I'm interested. You just said about this real life, and maybe what is not unreal, but how you define this not real place that you felt that was happening in your research or as an artist, So because I super interested in these two lines of this train of thoughts.
One of them, I mean, you could, if we took it into like a anthropology, it would be the difference between studying an unfamiliar land or tribe by just looking at it and taking notes. That's what I would, maybe my earlier self would look at it and would think about it without actually getting myself into it and seeing it from their perspective. The other, I know they do it in dance. I remember when I studied dance history in my MFA, they talked about the difference between someone who looks at, for instance, native dances and looks at it from the outside, or actually practices. Like, I remember we read two books. I don't remember what they were, but the difference was that one researcher, the way she researched was to go into the circle and dance the dances and talk about it from within. And the other one looked at it from outside and judged it with tools that she had before without actually experiencing it. So I think that's what my earlier self would do. And then my mind would work more than my body, because my mind would try to connect all these gaps instead of actually going into the experience and connecting it through the body itself.
Mm-hmm. And where is this dialogue between real? Sorry to say unreal, but we have a word in Spanish or like or a few words that define pajas mentales, like when you make your mental kind of crazy thoughts, So where is it right now this place? You found a common ground?
Yes, I think I'll give you an example, like another example for you and the listeners about real or not real. I know that if you see people around us and you see relationships, this is really, it's unconnected to performance, but everything is connected to performance. And you see some people chose partners and it was they made the wise choice, right? It's like the wise thing to do, or they chose a career and it was the wise choice. Their mind, their strategic mind told them, this is good, this has this element, this has this element, this is good for you. And this is the way they navigate it. Another one just went with their guts, So I think I'm more now leaning onto the other. I'm trying to listen to my instincts. Still, all the tools that I have, all the experience I have from the practice itself, from working in the field, from studying in academia, that will come in anyway. but to listen to some inner voice that tells you, there's something here, there's something here. It's a little more animalistic, although you know my work is not, if you imagine now that I speak of animalistic, someone will imagine me like running around the stage on all fours, and I don't do that necessarily unless it will ask me to. But the animalistic inner compass together with a verbal mind, analytical mind, but both of them working together and actually confronting each other and not just letting the brain win. When I teach choreography at 3 places, and when I teach them, you can see that you can, now that we have all this chat GPT, AI can choreograph a good piece, a piece that would have the I don't know, they will have a canon and they will have a unison and they will have a solo, and while they do and they can do the lighting and everything, but what the human can do is sense with their sixth sense, with their real senses, like aromas of things and little tensions that are created. And that's, I think, I'm more listening to that nowadays. And still everything is very verbal and with humor, and I use a lot of text. That was also something that I listened to, because when I started out, like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, I thought that it's a taboo to use text in dance because that means that I can't choreograph, that I have that it has to do with the body. And what does it mean? Am I moving towards theater? And I was worried about that.
Yeah, I mean, but nowadays this well, depends where, no, but these barriers or frontiers are quite more diffuse, compared to, 20 years ago, where, I know you need to, it's dance, it's just dance. If it's, I see some restrictions or resistances in this, putting the energy in separate text with movements or whatever, more in official institution who dedicates to pedagogic or to the pedagogical side of the dance rather than the practice itself, where I think, as I agree with you, they're much more blurry right now, and you don't need to be, stuck with just one thing and that one thing only, And what about, I would like to ask you about the, because one of the places where you bring all these questions and super interesting point of view, and of course your absolutely amazing practices, is the 48 project. So how is because the 48 project have a story right now, but if you can tell us a bit about it to our audience, and also where is the project right now?
So Project 48 Dance is a crazy adventure I started 11 years ago. It's this project where I invite choreographers, artists that are not choreographers, and performers, mostly dancers, to a 48-hour event, which is made out of 2 24-hour rounds, in which they create in ensembles that are determined by a raffle completely new works. So I invite these people. When I invite them, they don't know who else is doing it. And then they discover it on the day of the raffle. We have a raffle that decides who is going to work with whom. The artists work in pairs. Also, the artists don't know each other, or maybe they know each other before, but they didn't know that they were going to work together. One is a choreographer and one is not a choreographer. And together they have 24 hours to create a piece. And all the groups are creating out of a video reference that I give them. So that's the only thing that is shared with them. After 24 hours, we have a completely live, singular show that will never, no critic. Critics can come, but they can't write because it will never happen again. So they can't recommend or disrecommend. So we're free of all these things that maybe constrained us when we create. And at the end of the first show, we have another raffle, and the whole process starts again. and so it's two such rounds. And this also started with me wanting to find ways to connect the community, and also take away or peel away all these things that I felt were dividing us into little unseen compartments. I mean, Israel is a very small place, and inside of it, Tel Aviv, where most of people are working, is also very small, and we all work in kind of the same spaces. So you would go in the morning into a dance center, for instance, that has 4 studios, and in each studio, another choreographer is working, and nobody knows what anyone else is doing. And there is this feeling, that we are all in a race, but we don't see each other, and we are racing towards the same point. This is, of course, a fiction. Yeah, we're not racing, and there is no, but just because we are there in the same kind of lab, and there is no communication right away. Imagine yourself, even though, like the listener, that you are running a race, but you don't know where the end is, and you don't know where the other runners are. It's very stressful. So you start to imagine the worst. So it created kind of this competition, and I wanted to peel that away. So by bringing people together, first of all, just to say yes to the project, for someone to say, yes, I'm willing to dance for I don't know who, together with I don't know who, for 24 hours. It takes a lot of courage, but it's also very, very freeing. So I call it a blind date. I also call it a roller coaster ride, because it's kind of like that. It's very short, and it does not resemble the way you usually drive. It has ups, it has downs. It makes no sense. It goes upside down, but your belly is enjoying it. In someone I heard, you know, Esther Perel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she's amazing. So she spoke once about how the libido, the eros, is the place where you feel passion, is the same place that you feel fear. So I think that's what happens on a roller coaster, and I think this is a little bit what happens in Project 48, where people remember what it was like when they started, when we're just playing before all these. I think it's connected to what I told you about the mind, because the mind, for instance, thinks you come to create something, and then the mind is like, wait, but your last work was so and so, so now maybe you should go in a different direction. Or your mind says, the audience expects you, that your last work was funny, your audience expects funny, you better be funny, or all these things that are really irrelevant to what is in front of you. So this, and it's been going on for 11 years. It will happen again in September of this year. Yeah, and every time before I do it, I'm like, what did I get myself into? It's so complicated to produce. But for instance, I learned from it. I was speaking to one of the participants that I would like to invite to this year. And as I invited her, she said, oh, and by the way, I'm doing a stand-up evening, and I want you to do 3 minutes of stand-up. I've never done stand-up in my life. And I said yes, because I told her, okay, people have been saying yes to me for 11 years and taking the chance. So this Wednesday, I'm supposed to do a stand-up, comedy stand-up for 3 minutes. I don't know
you
how.
You can do it, Dana. I think you're up to wherever everybody can trust you. But anyway, I'm interested because you said something about how the Israeli dance community works and behave, you know, and because I was lucky to go many times there, and you are right, you know, I mean, this is this like unfold competition that's supposed to be happening, and when I met you and you introduced the Project 48, and now listening to you. Do you feel that it's a kind of subversive or disruptive type of project, considering how the dance community works in Israel? And the second question about it is, what is coming back to you after these 11 years with this project?
So first of all, I think maybe it started out subversive, but it became it became so much part of it, part of the, like, it happens once a year and everyone knows it happens once a year, that it's actually now woven in somehow into the dance community. It still doesn't cease to surprise me, both the yeses and also the nos, also the people that keep are still afraid of it. Many things have changed since we started. I mean, for instance, when we started, there were many less festivals. People were accepting dancers mostly based on auditions. I myself, I remember like doing auditions for dancers, which I feel, for me, for the way I work, they don't tell me much about the person, or they don't tell me what I need to know about the person. And there were no communities of discourse, for instance. And since then, this has changed. There started to be residencies, and within the residency, you had to share a work in progress. So you had to share something that was imperfect and not ready. And then you had to discuss it and hear feedback. And so blood started circulating. So we are in a different space, but I think there's still room for it. I think when I will feel that there is no more room, then I will maybe just stop one day. Like I started one day, I will stop. And in the sense of what's coming back to me, wow, I feel it made me feel I belong. It's weird because I try to make other people feel like they belong, but it made me feel like I belong, and I get to meet a lot of people that I don't know in a very clean way. I mean, you can really tell by the end of the 24 hours if this is someone you want to spend time with or not. It's very telling. And I've discovered people. I've discovered how many misconceptions I have of people. For instance, I met a dancer through Project 48, and only when I saw her doing a funny piece within the project, I realized that before that, I was sure that she was a very serious and morbid person. And I didn't know why, because I never spoke to her in my life. And then I realized that she worked with this choreographer, that was how his pieces looked like, and that all the conceptions I had of her was the way she was in his work, not even of the person. And I completely, but only when I met her, I realized that. And also I met a lot of collaborators through this project. I mean, if I invite dancers, usually it's people that I met in Project 48. Yeah.
So in a way, you create also a community, no?
Yes, completely selfish. Yes. Yes, I create a community.
Yeah, super. So I mean, it's amazing, and it's still, before I made you the last question, it's still room for I mean, regarding to how you concept and questioning yourself and how you live with this art life, let's say, versus your real life, what is the room for new things, and what is the room for new questions or thoughts?
I think in terms of me being the inventor and the initiator, I think I have this secret wish for someone to commission something from me, or to order something from me that would make me would make me do something that I never thought I would do. So I mean, the stand-up, maybe I said stand-up, I said yes to the stand-up because of that. But for instance, I did now a piece for the Tel Aviv Museum. They had this performative exhibition, and I made a piece for that I would never have thought. I mean, the limitations of it, to create something for a specific space, made me think in a new way. For instance, if I never created a piece for more than, not for students, like for a big company, it would really interest me what I would do in such a way. So I think my next thing is to have maybe a little period where I'm not leading, but I am led,
Interesting.
I think. Yeah.
Interesting. So it's amazing to hear you, and I hope that the listeners also can feel some of the incredible energy that Dana, expands to the universe. Because she's not selfish, she's super generous. So this year we introduced the idea of making a question that somebody else before bringing to the next guest. So before we tell you the question that we have for you, we would like to ask you if we can ask a question,
Yes.
to our next guest in the next episode of our podcast. So what question you be asking to them?
I would ask if what is the role of sense of humor in your life?
Okay. Interesting question. So your question, the question that is from David Señorian. David is the director of the University of San Martin in the province of Buenos Aires in Argentina. And he asked you in Spanish, then I'll translate to you. ¿Cuándo fue la última vez que sentiste la danza? When was the last time that you sensed or felt dance or the dance in yourself?
Wow. I think even today I had this moment. I mean, it's again, I think this battle between the mind. The mind is sometimes acts like a grown-up, and they're like, this, you don't have time for this, or you should do this. But the actual key is the body. So today I had a meeting very early. I got there a little bit before, and I suddenly I was like, I need to run a little bit, and I'm not a runner or anything. And I ran for 15 minutes. Okay. And I felt that some kind of engine was starting in me, something in my core, like that has to do with movement. And then I had the meeting, which was a lot of, sitting and talking and mind. And then when I got to the studio to work with the students I'm creating a piece for, suddenly my body was so happy to dance. And I felt like it was giving me back because I listened to it early in the morning. And I don't usually talk in these terms, but I was like, interesting. Because the mind said, you should use these 10 minutes in the morning to have a coffee before the meeting. But my body was like, I need to run. And I actually ran around the meeting was at the museum. I ran around the museum in the street unexpectedly. My body wanted. So I think dance for me has to do with listening to the body and being in kind of a conversation with it. And the moment of dance is the joy about this relationship. Like you are not alone, you have your body.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dana, to bring us all your energy and your thoughts on where you are.
Thank you.
And,
thank you.
It's absolutely
and thank you to the people that take the time to listen to it. I really appreciate.
Yeah. So this was episode number 48 with Dana, and see you in the next one. Thank you so much.